your coaching call, uh, what happens on the coaching call? Are there obviously there's plenty of good things that can happen. I'm sure there are some that aren't that good that can happen. What's your experience? What do you see on those coaching calls you do?
Well, wow, that's a pretty wide open question. Geez, I get everything from, well, why is this free and why do you do it? Can I use this to build any company? I mean, the questions are so varied. What can happen? With people, the interactions and the questions they can come up with, as to why or how or what's in it for me. And if you stop and think about it for a minute, any question that someone is going to ask you is going to lead you to have a bit better understanding of their programming and where they're coming from. And so, again, if you listen to their question, like if someone says, how can I use the mentoring for free system without an agenda to get the person to my company? I mean, how can I do that? They'll say that this is about a selling business and I need to sell to people, so if I'm using mentoring for free, then I can't be selling them my product or my company. And that's when you go back to the book and say, go back to the ebook and read chapters 2 and 3, and you'll find out how to do that. So again, pretty much whatever they bring up, you can find a method to bring that back to the ebook, or back to one of the calls, or even back to one of our philosophical tenets that hold the process together.
So in that coaching call, again, you're you're just pointing. You're bringing them back to the ebook and letting that handle it for them. Again, we started off talking about duplication, and this is, how you're doing it is obviously probably much more duplicatable than so many things that are done in network marketing, because people get into the mindset of, when they're doing a coaching call, okay, now when do I start selling? When do I start convincing them? Just like this hypothetical one you were just talking about a minute ago. And you can't, one thing we know for sure is you can't do that. It doesn't work. And even if you can sell, nobody in your group is going to be able to sell, so you can't base the system on that. But referring them back to the book and just consistently referring them back to the book to answer their questions, that's going to work well, so long as you know where to refer them in the book. So.
Yes, let me give you an example. One of the questions I get a lot, Richard, is, well, I already know how to do network marketing. I've been doing it for 10 years, 12 years, and I've got a really good-sized downline, and my business is growing, but, I can't get my downline to duplicate. I can't get them to do anything. Can I just give them the ebook and point them to the free training? They'll say, I don't have much time to spend with them. And if someone says something like that, you know that this person is doing what? They're out there recruiting because they haven't got time to train the downline. And if they stopped and read the book where Michael talks about retention, so in that case, I'd point them to the chapter where Michael discusses retention, and that's somewhere achieved in the front half of the book, I believe, but it's easy to find, and that's in chapter 4 on retention. So I point them to chapter 4 and say, well, you can do that, and we'd be glad to help you, but you need to understand that if you don't have a high retention factor, you'll find yourself in the situation you're in. So explain to them how that chapter in the book relates to the situation they're in, and if they want to learn more about how to get out of it, they better go back and read that book. In a lot of cases, they'll say then, well, you know what? I will read that book, because they may not have. They may not have read it. They may have skimmed through it, but they didn't really see that section. Mm-hmm. But you're right. You have to know the book in order to properly use it.
Okay, so you go through a coaching call with them, and you've already gathered some information. You're gathering more as they talk about what their frustrations are, and what their problems have been, and you're directing them back to the book for answers to those frustrations and problems. And then how does that? So, and again, we're in this first coaching call. How does that call generally end, and where do you go from that first call?
Once I found out where they are, what's going on with them, and I also always try to find out something in their life that we can talk about. If I'm talking to one of the women, I might talk about sewing, or I might talk about our children, just so I can start to build a relationship. And when the call ends, I'll always ask them, well, is this a good day for me to call you back next week, and what's a good time for you? And if you've done a good job of talking to the person and building the relationship, they'll say, well, no, I can't talk next Tuesday, but, hey, next Wednesday at 4 o'clock is good for me. So I always try to get a time that we're going to talk again. I do that for a few reasons. One is it gives them sort of a, here's when I'm going to be talking to Sarah again, and geez, I might have some questions, so I better go read that book again, or maybe want to go on a training session she talked about, or I might want to ask her about one of the audios I listened to, but they'll have some reason to put a little more time and effort into learning, because I'm now offering them my time, and I'm doing this, for free, and they recognize that, so I'm offering them my time. So people are usually going to reciprocate and give you some of their time to actually go learn some of the things in the book and be able to ask you some intelligent questions.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so next time you talk to them, they haven't done that. What do you do?
Well, if someone hasn't read the ebook and we've agreed that they would, I try to find out, was there some extenuating circumstance that, did they have a problem with their child? Did their, house burn down? Was there a hurricane? What was the, I'll try to find out if there was something in their personal life. And if it's that, I'll take one approach, well, let me know when you can, and I'll make a note of what their issue is. And if I can find some way to help them or refer them to an organization, I'll do that for them. And if it's just they didn't get to it because whatever, I'll say, well, you really need to read that book because it's going to save you absolutely years of failure and frustration. And I say, well, let's talk next week after you've read it. And again, I'll say, what's a good day? Mm-hmm. And I'll do that 2 or 3 times with a person. And if after 2 or 3 times they still haven't read the book, I'll say, well, I'll give a story about something like Aladdin's lamp. Tell them how the ebook equates to, they have all the answers. They have the genie in their hands. All they have to do is rub that book 3 times or read it to get the answers to their questions. And if they'll do that, then, I will devote an hour of my time to answering their questions. And I'll say, well, when you've read it, you can call me. And then they generally realize when you say that to them and you take that approach that, wow, this lady gave me 2 or 3 calls, gave me the chances, and maybe they'll read it and maybe they won't. If they're ready for it and they're looking for the help and the answers, then they will read it. Now I'm working with a few gentlemen. One gentleman, I believe it was in our 55th week, because I told him the week before that it was our year anniversary of talking. I believe he actually read the book the 55th week. And, because he had something to do, he had this business to start, he had this whatever, and things get in the way sometimes. So if you're just patient and you work with them and you talk to them, understand where they're at, you'll know what the next move is.
Mm-hmm. You're also going to have, obviously, some people are just going to eliminate themselves. If you, one of the problems that we've all seen in this business, I think, is you call people back and call them back and call them back and call them back, and you can waste so much time doing that and really get the runaround. But if you're engaging them and getting a commitment from them to read the ebook or listen to an audio tape, and they don't do it, and then you get another commitment and they don't do it, and maybe you get another commitment and they don't do it, that pretty much